Warning, F-bombs are armed and might be dropped. You know, it's a really beautiful day out today. It's the first truly nice day I've seen in about 3 years. It's too bad millions will not live to see today because of racism. I was about 16 or so when my dad was telling me a story from his time in Vietnam. There was something called the Kit Carson Scouts. Now, you can look this up if you want, but the short version is every so often a Viet Cong or an NVA, they'd be captured or they'd just decide to switch sides or whatever. And they'd start helping the Americans in the South Vietnamese army. They were called the Kit Carson Scouts. So one day, my dad's, I assume it was his Cup team, was in a village with a Kit Carson Scout and an American translator and a Vietnamese translator. Or, yeah, I think it was a Vietnamese, he said it, Vietnamese translator. The Vietnamese translator was asking the Kit Carson, why do you fight so hard? You know, why do you fight at all? And the scout, the Kit Carson Scout, was saying, we watch the news from America. We know that all we have to do is just keep fighting, and sooner or later the Americans will go away and South Vietnam will fall. Now, my dad didn't speak any Vietnamese, or just a few words, excuse me. But he's watching the American translator, and the American translator's listening in, nodding every so often. So my dad stops him and asks him, what are they saying? The American translated. It's about 3.5 years later, I think it was, that exactly that scenario happened. Now, that's not the whole story, is it? For those of you that remember the Vietnam War era, you know I'm about to tell you the truth, especially because you don't like it. How many of you draft dodgers said, I would join the army if we were fighting the Germans, but this isn't the Germans and they're not the Jews, and I don't want to die in some foreign country? How many of you really said to yourself, I don't want to die for a bunch of word I'm really not allowed to use on YouTube? Yeah, don't try and fool me. Do not try and fool me here. I know exactly what you were saying and you were thinking. Because when I was younger, you were stupid and said it out loud. Shocking discovery. I remember the Carter administration. I even remember hearing about President Jimmy Carter. That's how old I really am. Do you really think you're gonna fool me? Try again. Now, for those of you that say, I support the military, but I don't support war, you're full of shit. You're lying through your teeth. Because the same mentality that was going through that Kit Carson Scout went through ISIS's heads, went through the Somali warlords' heads. Hell, they thought that that's what was going to happen in Grenada and Panama. And I know this because that's when I heard this theory about, so it was during Panama. All right, I was born in 1976. We'll get the numbers later. It was when the U.S. went into Panama that my dad first told me that story. And I heard people talking about it then. I don't want to fight in Panama. I didn't join the army to fight in Panama. I wouldn't join the army to go fight in Panama. I'll fight for America, but I'm not going to go to Panama. Don't try and bullshit me. Don't sit there, piss on my fucking head, and tell me it's raining. I'm not that young, and I'm not that stupid anymore. Go see Alita.